He still took fish oil every morning, yet his memory got worse day by day. Doctor, I still take fish oil regularly. Why am I still so forgetful? Should I take a higher dose? People say fish oil is great for memory. I've heard those questions hundreds of times. From older adults who stay persistent every day, taking soft gel capsules each morning, hoping to hold on to their clarity. They believe that just taking it regularly is enough. Until one day, they begin forgetting things they shouldn't forget. One person no longer remembers yesterday's lunch. Another picks up the phone but can't recall who they were going to call. Someone doesn't recognize their grandchild standing right in front of them, the one who visits every week. I don't blame them. Because they're doing what this society often does, choosing convenience, instead of feeling. Choosing capsules, instead of a real meal. I remember that morning so clearly. Mr. Richard, 74 years old, sat across from me, head slightly bowed. His voice raspy but sincere. Doctor, I take high-quality fish oil. Every morning. But lately, my mind feels cloudy. I keep forgetting. And I don't know why. I sat silently for a moment. In that moment, I didn't hear his words anymore. What I saw were the faces of countless others just like him. Each one swallowing shiny capsules, hoping to preserve memories that were slipping away. I asked him, when was the last time you ate fish? He thought for a while. Then slowly gave a sad smile. When I was young, we were poor. Mom used to braise sardines in soy sauce. That smell. It was amazing. Since she passed, I haven't had it again. Now with fish oil, I thought. That was enough. But it wasn't. The brain doesn't operate on substitute formulas. You can't force it to remember. Just through a tasteless, scentless, emotionless capsule. Because memory isn't just a chain of chemicals. It's living memory. It's taste, smell, touch, emotion, all woven together. And one soft, real, fragrant piece of fish could be the small thread that ties back the brain starting to unravel. In Mr. Richard's eyes that morning, I didn't just see a man forgetting. I saw someone who had never been told that memory needs to be nourished, not just taken for convenience. And in that very moment when Mr. Richard spoke of the meal with his mother from childhood, I realized something most people never think about. That we can take it right, but still live it wrong. We can supplement fully, but the brain may still not respond. Because the brain doesn't just need nutrients. It needs life. It needs flavor. It needs a real enough emotion to awaken the part of memory that's fallen asleep. One piece of fish, seemingly simple, might be the thread that reconnects torn memory circuits. Whereas a capsule, no matter how shiny, is still an empty shell if it lacks connection. And what keeps troubling me is that most older adults don't realize they're swallowing a lifeless habit, while what they truly need is a vibrant piece of fish that calls them back to themselves. I couldn't keep that to myself. Because after Mr. Richard, there was one more person who completely changed how I see memory, soft gels, and the way we might be misjudging the brain entirely. Capsules don't help your memory, they just make you forget how you used to live. Mr. Richard wasn't the only one who made me stop in my tracks. On the contrary, he was one of hundreds of patients I've met, all sharing the same pattern, taking fish oil daily, consistently, sometimes for over a decade. But at some point, they began asking, "Doctor? I've been taking it, but why does my mind still feel like it's drifting farther every day?" That question always makes me pause for a few seconds. Because I know. They're not looking for a biological answer. They're looking for something deeper. Am I losing myself, even though I'm trying to stay healthy? I want you to imagine this. Each morning, you walk into the kitchen. Take a fish oil capsule from a plastic bottle, Swallow it with a sip of cool water. No smell. No taste. No impression for the brain to register. Then you turn to the sofa, switch on the TV, and believe, you just protected your memory. The only thing your brain just received was a cold liquid capsule, with zero emotional signals attached. Meanwhile, your brain needs something else, a real piece of fish, soft, warm, with a hint of ocean salt, a faint scent of ginger, the sizzle of hot oil, the gaze of a loved one across the dinner table. That's the language your brain understands. That's memory. That's a signal to awaken the sense of being alive, not just a dose of nutrients. Fish oil capsules, correct in content, but wrong in context. Wrong in setting. Wrong in emotional timing. It's like a song without a listener. Or an envelope sent to the brain, with a blank sheet of paper inside. I once called it a soulless capsule. Not because it's bad, but because it lacks what makes us human, emotion, and connection. And then, another man walked into my clinic. Same slow steps. Also carrying a bottle of premium imported fish oil capsules. But he no longer remembered how to get home, even though he just walked that path yesterday. Didn't recognize his granddaughter's face. Didn't remember why he was at the family gathering last week. When I asked about his eating habits, he said, "I don't eat fish, doctor. I only take the capsule. The smell of fish bothers me." And then he said something that made me go still. Maybe I'm remembering less, but I don't know what I'm forgetting. And that was the moment I decided to tell you the story of Mr. Robert, whose memory didn't fade because of disease, but because of something seemingly harmless, refusing a real piece of fish. I forgot my way home, and forgot my granddaughter's name, a late confession from a grandfather he came in on a drizzly afternoon in Colorado. The air was chilly, the wind slipped through the clinic's door cracks. But what sent chills down my spine wasn't the weather. It was the way he sat, quiet, as if apologizing to his own memory. His name was Robert, 72 years old. A retired aerospace engineer, retired for 10 years now. I looked at his chart, all his biological markers were not bad. Steady pulse. Good blood sugar. Slightly high cholesterol, but still manageable. But then he said something that made me stop mid-sentence. "Last week, I forgot how to get home. I was driving. And suddenly I didn't know where I was. I had to pull over and ask a young police officer to help find my address. They asked me where I lived. And I couldn't answer right away." He paused, then added slowly, "I still remember my old phone number. But the other day, my granddaughter came over, and I forgot her name." I looked at him. Then I looked at his MRI scan of the hippocampus, the region for long-term memory. His hippocampus had already begun to shrink. The blood flow to that part of the brain, thin, weak, intermittent. I asked carefully about his lifestyle. "Do you sleep well? Do you move your body? Do you eat fish?" He smiled faintly and answered right away, "I take fish oil capsules every day. For more than 8 years now." Then he looked down and added, "But fish? No. I don't like the smell." I figured. The capsule was enough. I didn't say anything right away. Because in that moment, all I felt was one thing. He had no idea he was slowly drifting away from the deepest parts of his memory, by making a choice that seemed so harmless. There was no stroke. No injury. Just blood flow too weak to reach the memory regions. Just a cold capsule that couldn't awaken memories quietly fading. Memory doesn't fall like shattered glass. It wears down, like water soaking into wood. Day after day. Ever since flavor left the meal. Ever since real fish was replaced with a feelingless capsule. But do you know what keeps me from collapsing in frustration? It's this realization. If fish can be replaced, it can also be brought back. And I'll show you why a real piece of fish supports brain circulation far better than any capsule you've ever swallowed. Your brain can't read a capsule, but it understands every bite of real fish. I know what you might be thinking right now: is real fish really better than a fish oil capsule? What could a piece of food possibly offer that a pure extract doesn't? I used to think the same. Until I understood something neuroscience has known for decades, but rarely explains in plain language: the brain doesn't absorb omega-3 the way you think it does. You swallow a capsule containing DHA or EPA, sure. But if you take it on an empty stomach, or when your liver is sluggish, or without enough vitamin D to help absorption, that capsule never reaches your brain. It gets lost somewhere in your digestive system. Meanwhile, a piece of real fish, even a small one, carries a complete ecosystem: DHA, EPA, taurine, vitamin B12, selenium, structural protein. And most importantly, the feeling of being alive. You take a bite of fish, and your digestive system comes alive. Your gallbladder releases bile. Digestive enzymes kick in. Healthy fats are processed through the liver, then to the heart, and finally, to the brain. Real fish is a complete language the brain understands. It doesn't just deliver nutrients. It carries a full message, with flavor, emotion, and memory. In contrast, a capsule, even the purest kind, is like a blank letter with no return address. It might get delivered, but the recipient won't know what to do with it. A patient once asked me, "So, did I waste 8 years taking fish oil capsules, doctor?" I didn't say it was wasted. I simply said, the ingredients may be right, but if the delivery is wrong, the brain won't respond. And from that moment on, he started eating real fish again, just once a week. 3 weeks later, he returned. And the first thing he did was remember his granddaughter's name. No struggle. No cue needed. I'm not saying fish is medicine. I'm saying fish is a signal, sent in the right way, to awaken a part of the brain that's been asleep far too long. So if you want to eat fish to protect your memory, where should you start? And which types of fish truly bring healing blood flow to your brain? I'll show you, not based on theory, but on what I've seen in real recovery. 4 types of fish that reopen blood flow to the brain, and memory can be revived starting this lunch. You don't need to change your entire diet. You just need to send your brain a message that's vivid and full of emotion, from a real piece of fish. For people over 60, especially when memory has begun to quietly fade in fragments, I often suggest rebuilding meals with types of fish that carry natural signals of recovery: low in mercury, easy to absorb, gentle on the liver and blood vessels. And here are 4 choices that I've personally seen make the most visible difference in my patients. First is salmon. This fish has a soft texture, moderately fatty, not chewy, and very easy to eat even for older adults with dental issues. Salmon contains DHA and astaxanthin, not only nourishing neurons but also helping to repair the small vascular system inside the brain. When steamed with a few slices of ginger and lemon, or baked in foil with vegetables like pumpkin, carrots, green beans, that piece of fish becomes a gentle meal that the memory region can recognize and receive like a new breath of air. I usually recommend eating salmon at lunch or in the early afternoon, when the digestive system absorbs fats best during the day. Each bite of salmon is like a smooth stream of blood flowing toward a fading memory. But there's another type of fish, though smaller, that evokes even stronger emotions, especially those tied to childhood memories. That's mackerel. This fish is rich, tender, and full of EPA, a compound that relaxes blood vessels and soothes inflammation in older adults. Mackerel is especially suitable for those with unstable blood pressure or mildly high cholesterol. When stewed with turmeric and ginger, or grilled over charcoal and eaten with fresh herbs, Mackerel is not only delicious but also sends a natural anti-inflammatory signal to the nervous system. Note that this fish has a rather strong flavor, so eating just a small amount once or twice a week is enough. When you eat mackerel the right way, you're softening even the most stubborn blood flow in the brain. But if you've ever missed the smell of your mother's stewed fish, then the next type of fish may reach a deeper place, memory. I'm talking about herring. This is a humble fish but very rich in omega-3s, vitamin B12, and the ability to reawaken the brain region that stores long-term emotions. When stewed lightly with pepper, steamed with scallions, or gently grilled, herring retains a familiar taste that many older adults remember from childhood. One of my patients once said, "Just smelling stewed herring brings my father back to the dinner table." And I believe that. Because memories sometimes aren't recalled by a photo, but by a warm, soft, fragrant piece of fish that melts in the mouth. But not everyone can easily eat fresh fish multiple times a week, especially those who feel tired, busy, or eat very little. For them, there's still another option, gentle, convenient, yet still carrying a recovery signal. That's sardines. A small fish rich in DHA and calcium, ideal for those with poor memory, weak digestion, or not enough energy to prepare elaborate meals. You can use low-sodium canned sardines from a trusted brand, warm them up slightly, and eat them with whole grain bread or steamed vegetables. A few drops of lemon or a pinch of pepper can help boost flavor. Sardines are not only a concentrated source of nutrients but also a minimalist yet effective solution, so every older person can send their brain a warm message, even in just a few minutes of preparation. Whether you've avoided the fishy smell, don't know how to cook, or don't have the time, there is always a way to return to a real meal, as long as you have the right mindset and the right piece of fish. Because eating fish is not about getting nutrients, but about awakening a memory zone that's waiting for you to come back. And you know, fish not only needs to be the right type, but also the right method, the right time, the right person. A good piece of fish, eaten the wrong way, can lose all its meaning. And I've seen many who thought they were doing the right thing but accidentally made their memory worse, just by overlooking one seemingly tiny factor in their meal. Let me tell you about it, the thing that over 90% of older adults have done wrong when eating fish. And it doesn't just make the fish ineffective. Sometimes it even harms the blood vessels inside the brain. Over 90% of people taking fish oil are making this silent mistake. Are you one of them? I used to think just guiding patients to the right type of fish would lead to recovery. But reality isn't that simple. I've met so many people who eat fish, but still forget. Still feel distracted. Still feel their brain is in a fog every morning. And when I asked more carefully, I realized they weren't wrong because of lacking fish, but because of eating it the wrong way, taking it with the wrong habits, silently. Some people fry the fish until it's golden and drenched in oil, then eat it with very salty fish sauce. Some say, "I don't eat fish, I take fish oil capsules, imported ones, but only at night before bed, because it's convenient." Some even leave the capsules on the shelf, near a hot stove, not knowing that fish oil oxidizes easily, losing its effect or even turning slightly toxic if stored improperly. I remember Ms. Margaret, 68 years old. She was very serious about her health, took fish oil daily. But after a few years, she started to become irritable, slept fitfully, and forgot the names of her neighbors. We ran a small test. Her EPA blood level was extremely low, meaning those capsules she took weren't actually being absorbed. Because she usually took them on an empty stomach, at night, without anything else. With fish oil capsules, timing is more important than you think. The liver only processes fats well when paired with a meal, especially one rich in greens and fiber. If you take it on an empty stomach, or take it and lie down right after, that capsule just passes through your body, leaving nothing for the brain. I've also checked the quality of some imported capsules that patients brought in. Many didn't meet purity standards, were mildly oxidized, even had a fishy smell and strange color. When a capsule is degraded, it not only loses effectiveness, but can even create free radicals that inflame blood vessels. We often believe that taking it means it works. But in reality, how we take it, how we eat, is how the brain receives its message. And if you send the wrong signal every day, memory will begin to fall silent. If you've been taking fish oil regularly for years, but still feel your mind slowing down, take a look at these 3 simple things. Are you taking it at the right time? Are you pairing it with a nutritious meal? Are you letting your brain actually hear that piece of fish? Because sometimes, we think we're nourishing, but we're actually making the brain even quieter. Then I met a woman, 67 years old, who made just one small change in her meal. And her memory began to return, slowly but surely. Let me tell you what changed in Linda's kitchen. I gave up the capsules, and after 3 weeks, I remembered the name my husband once lovingly called me. I still remember that morning very clearly. Ms. Linda, 67 years old, came from Seattle for an appointment on a light rainy day. She sat down and handed me a paper filled with questions. But then she looked at me and smiled gently. Actually, I only have one question, doctor. Why do I still feel like I'm forgetting, even though I'm doing everything right? She was a careful person, almost meticulous with every pill. Took fish oil in the morning, magnesium at night. Didn't eat salty food, didn't smoke, still did light yoga every morning. But she started forgetting old friends' names. Called her husband by the wrong name. Even mixed up her daughter's name during last week's video call. When I asked about her diet, she looked down softly and said, I don't eat fish. I take the capsules for convenience, because the smell of fish makes me nauseous. I leaned in closer to her and said very gently, maybe your body is getting the substance. But your brain isn't receiving anything at all. We came up with a simple plan together. No need to change everything. Just one small thing, eat steamed salmon every Tuesday. Once a week. Eat in silence. No TV. No phone. Just eat and listen to your body. After 1 week, she texted me, don't feel much yet, but the fish is softer and easier to eat than I thought. In the 2nd week, she wrote, sleeping better, and my head feels less tense in the morning. Not sure if it's the fish. But my mind feels less tangled. In the 3rd week, she walked into the clinic with a brighter face than the first visit. And the first thing she said was, I said his name correctly, without trying to remember. It just came out naturally. He turned to me, smiled, and told me I hadn't said that name in almost a year. I went quiet for a few seconds. She didn't take any new medication. Didn't do memory exercises. Didn't meditate or add anything else. Just one piece of real fish, eaten the right way, at the right time. And that awakened a signal that capsules could never reach, reconnecting with the deepest emotional memory. I don't call that a miracle. I call it biological precision delivered at the right moment. And then, I wondered, maybe our memory doesn't just need nutrients, but needs something deeper, quieter, and often forgotten in a capsule, emotion. Let me tell you what studies often overlook, something only a warm meal can truly do for the brain. Your brain needs both nutrition and love. A capsule only gives you half. I used to think, if someone ate the right foods and took enough nutrients, then memory would be fine. But after over 20 years of working with thousands of older adults, I've learned something even more important. The brain doesn't just need nutrients, it needs to be revived through connection. Memory doesn't live in a pill. It lives in the moment when you're called by your name. In the laughter of a loved one sitting beside you as you share a warm meal. In a small story someone tells, that brings you back to 1978 in your old town. Those things are not in a capsule. When Ms. Linda ate fish alone, quietly, without distraction, she gave her brain a chance to receive the signal fully, through taste, smell, a sense of safety, and dopamine, the hormone of connection. Many people think dopamine is only related to happiness. But in fact, it's the neurotransmitter that most powerfully activates emotional memory. And the strange thing is, dopamine doesn't release when you swallow a fish oil capsule. But it does appear when you laugh. When you eat something that warms your heart. When you sit beside someone you trust, during a meal that doesn't need many words. I remember once, a patient of mine, Mr. Jim, 75 years old, told me, "You know, Doc, I've been eating fish forever. But when I sat down to eat with my granddaughter, and she looked at me and asked, 'Grandpa, did you ever go fishing?' I told her stories all through the meal. And afterward, I realized. I had recalled details I thought were long gone. We cannot summon memory with nutrients alone. We need one more ingredient, not sold anywhere, presence. I'm not saying you have to eat with the whole family every day. I just hope you don't let meals become mechanical acts. Because the more soulless the eating, the more disconnected the brain becomes. The more vivid the meal, the more the brain awakens. But the heartbreaking truth is, I've seen too many people doing everything right, yet still losing memory, simply because they made very quiet mistakes right in their meals. Mistakes that seem small, but are like tiny cuts to the hippocampus each day. Let me share those with you, so you won't have to say the words I've heard from so many patients, if only I had known earlier. The mistakes I've witnessed, and what I tell my patients. There's something that troubles me more than diagnosing a disease, and it's when I hear an older adult say in a very quiet voice, "If only I had known this earlier." Those words don't come after a stroke. They usually come after a series of small mistakes, repeated every day, in their own kitchen. And sadly, those mistakes are rarely warned about. I remember Ms. Ruth, 70 years old, who used to be very careful. She ate fish every week, took fish oil regularly. But her memory didn't improve. We did some checks, and discovered something simple. She always fried fish using old oil, the kind that had been reused many times. She said, "I hate wasting, so after frying fish, I save the oil for next time." The healthy fats in fish, when exposed to old oil at high temperatures, will change. Not only do they lose their effect, but they also form compounds that inflame brain blood vessels. I don't blame her. Because that's something anyone could make. We often focus on what we eat, but overlook how it's prepared, which directly affects the survival of nutrients. Another patient, Mr. Henry, 73 years old, once told me, "I don't eat fish because of the smell. I just take capsules." Aren't all capsules the same, as long as it says omega-3 on the label? We checked, and found that what he was using was a cheap synthetic capsule, mildly oxidized. He had no idea. And never thought he needed to check the expiration date, capsule color, or origin. Those things, to young people, might seem like small details. But for someone over 60, they're the line between a recovering brain and a brain silently deteriorating. I've seen people eat fish 3 times a week, but with too much salt, causing high blood pressure. I've also met an elderly man who took fish oil along with blood thinners, without telling his doctor. The result was minor damage to small blood vessels in the brain, leading to lingering confusion for weeks. You see, eating fish isn't automatically good. Taking capsules isn't automatically safe. The issue is that we were never properly guided from the start. And that's why I always remind my patients, if you truly want to protect your memory, start with a real piece of fish, cooked gently, eaten mindfully, and chosen with love for the very region of your brain. And if you've ever forgotten a loved one's name, a familiar street, or something important even just briefly, I invite you to try something very small, that might become a turning point for your memory. Replace the capsule with a real piece of fish, and let your emotions be your companion during that meal. Start from there, from calling the name of someone you once loved, and let your memory answer you with warmth returning. If you've ever forgotten a loved one's name, try replacing the capsule with a piece of fish. Do you remember the last time you forgot a loved one's name? Maybe it was during a video call, or when you opened the door for someone familiar, but couldn't name them right away. Maybe you changed the subject, smiled it off, but deep down, something kept bothering you. I've heard this from so many older adults. No one says it out loud. They just sigh, or whisper it during a checkup. I forgot my sister's name. I know I love her so much, but that day I called her the neighbor lady. You know, memory doesn't vanish in one day. It only begins to fade, when the connection zone in the brain stops receiving signs of life. That signal isn't in a prescription. It lies in the act you perform with awareness, every day. And the most beautiful thing is, memory isn't just something you can hold on to. It's something you can call back. I've seen many patients do exactly that. No need for a high-end memory recovery center. No expensive equipment required. They only needed one simple thing, a real piece of fish, eaten mindfully, and the act of calling someone they once loved by name. Because you're not just eating fish. You're giving the hippocampus, the keeper of memory, a gentle trigger, a sensory touch, an awakening. A knock on the door that's been quietly left ajar. You don't have to force yourself to remember. Just live in that moment, and let the meal do the rest. And then, maybe, you'll say a name you thought you'd forgotten. You'll recall an afternoon fishing in 1965. Or remember the name of your high school desk mate, just because today, you ate a piece of herring, cooked exactly the way your mother used to make. I'm not calling that miraculous. I'm saying that's the true nature of a living brain. And if you've been silently swallowing capsules every day, but still feel tired, scattered, or emotionally numb, maybe the signal you've been sending is just too quiet. Send a vivid signal instead. Call out a name you love. And let your brain know, you're still here, and your memory is still waiting to be awakened. Because I've witnessed one small meal do what 3 years of capsules could not. Right inside a quiet room of an old nursing home on the outskirts of town. Just one piece of fish, and he remembered his wedding day in 1967. It happened 2 years ago, in a small nursing home on the northern outskirts of Seattle. That day, I visited an elderly man named Walter, 78 years old, a former carpenter, living alone after his wife passed away. He didn't have Alzheimer's. He wasn't confused. But something in his eyes always seemed distant. When people asked him about yesterday, he remembered. But when asked about the old days, he just shook his head, smiled faintly. I had lunch with him that day. The dining room was small, quiet. The nurse brought out a special meal, grilled herring, a dish his daughter said Mom used to make every rainy season. He stared at the plate of fish for a long time. Said nothing. Then very slowly, he picked up a spoon, gently separated a piece, brought it to his mouth. I saw his hand pause for half a second. Then tears welled up, not from heat, not from spice. He looked at me, and whispered, as if afraid the memory might slip away, "She made this dish on the morning of our wedding. It rained lightly that day, she didn't wear a white dress, just an old apron. But I remember the taste of the fish. Exactly like this." No one said anything for several minutes. I let him keep eating. Didn't ask. Didn't take notes. just silently watched a man reclaim a fragment of memory he thought had been lost forever. No memory drills. No cognitive tests. No capsules at all. Just one soft piece of fish, simply grilled, served at the right moment, the right flavor, and touching the deepest part of the hippocampus, where memory and emotion live side by side. I'm not saying everyone will remember like that. But I believe, when you eat the right way, with emotion, and treat eating as an act of connection instead of just fueling up, the brain will respond. Maybe not with a long story. Maybe just with clearer focus in the morning. A deeper night's sleep. A name said at just the right moment. A feeling of no longer being lost inside your own head. And if one small meal can do that, then you can absolutely start from your own kitchen. No need to change everything. Just a small plan, just enough for your brain to know, I'm being heard. I'll show you that plan, a 3-week roadmap, that I've given to many people. And they found themselves returning. You don't need to change your whole life, just one fish meal a week to call memory back. I know, many older adults feel hesitant when they hear change your habits. Worried it's too much work. Worried it's too complicated. Worried that doing it inconsistently will feel like letting themselves down. But you don't need to change everything. No need to force yourself. No need for strict meal plans or counting every gram of fat. You just need to start again with one very small thing, done regularly, done sincerely, and let your brain feel it. This is the 3-week roadmap I often share with my patients, and I've seen many of them regain clarity, vitality, and even confidence in their eyes. Just through one real fish meal each week. Week 1, gentle preparation. No need to be perfect. Pick a day when you feel the freest, most relaxed in your week. Prepare a small piece of salmon, or mackerel, or sardines if those are easier to find. No need to be fancy. Steam with a few slices of ginger, lightly grill, or cook it the way your mother used to. Most important, eat in silence. No TV. No phone. No news. Just you and the meal. Week 2, eat with someone familiar. Invite a friend, a grandchild, a neighbor, someone who makes you feel safe. Share a meal with fish. Tell them a memory related to the dish. Doesn't need to be long. Just someone to listen, and a little emotion to arise. At that moment, dopamine in your brain is being activated. Week 3, reflect and listen to your body. After 2 weeks, ask yourself, are you sleeping more deeply? Do you find it easier to focus in the morning? Did you recall someone's name faster than before? If yes, don't be so quick to think just coincidence. Understand that's a sign your brain has received the signal again. And if you feel lighter, more peaceful after that meal, then you've done exactly what needed to be done. I'm not asking you to eat fish every day. I'm simply inviting you to send memory a small message, through a piece of fish, a moment fully lived, and a truly connecting act. Because in the end, what your brain needs isn't a cold capsule. It's a repeated act, vivid and sincere, enough to awaken what you once thought was gone. And if you felt yourself quietly drifting away from memory, give yourself a chance to come back, starting with that small meal. Because you're not just nourishing a brain. You're calling back a part of the person you once were. You don't need to force memory, you just need to awaken it the right way. If you were to take only one thing from this video, I hope it's not the name of a fish, not the omega-3 ratio, but the memory of Mr. Walter, who ate one piece of fish, and remembered his wedding day after more than 50 years. I hope it's the image of you sitting in your kitchen, with a simple piece of fish in front of you, and in your mind, a memory door gently opening. Because what I want you to know isn't, fish is better than capsules, but rather, you can still remember who you are. You don't have to try to remember. Just send your brain the right signal, a vivid act, with emotion, with connection. A slow meal. A mindful bite of fish. A story not forgotten. I don't have a special pill. I only have fragments of memory that have been reawakened, from people who once seemed to quietly fade away. If something touched you today, if you've ever forgotten, and suddenly feel the urge to call someone's name, give yourself that chance, like this video. Not for me, but as a way to confirm to yourself that you're ready to return. Comment below if there's a memory you long to call back. I and many others will read, and know that you are not alone. Share this video if you know someone taking capsules every day and still feeling their memory fade. Maybe, through you, they'll choose one piece of fish and find themselves again. And if you want to go further, to turn what you heard today into a real journey of revival, follow the Thrive 60+ channel. We'll continue this together, not to chase youth, but to live alert, live true, live connected, at any age. With just one piece of fish, one name called, and one quiet belief that memory has never left you. It's just waiting to be awakened. We'll meet again. And when we do, I hope I'll call you by the right name.